The political air in Canada is crackling. Not just tense, electric. Days before Prime Minister Mark Carney walks into the Oval Office to face Donald Trump, a new voice has shaken the entire country, and it's not from Ottawa. It's from Brampton. Outside the massive Stellantis auto plant, Ontario Premier Doug Ford took the microphone and did what few politicians dare to do. He went straight for Trump's throat. No filters. No hesitation. He warned Carney in front of a roaring crowd, "Fight like hell when you face Trump. Don't roll over. Show him who we are." It wasn't just political theater, it was a line in the sand. Ford declared, loud and clear, that Canada will never, ever be America's 51st state. And that single sentence sent shockwaves across the nation. Because this moment isn't just about tariffs or trade deals anymore. This is about sovereignty. It's about who we are as a country, and how much longer we're willing to let Washington talk down to us. Trump's been tossing around the 51st state line like it's a joke. But Canadians aren't laughing. When he dropped that comment during a speech to U.S. troops, claiming Canada's lucky to be under American protection, it wasn't patriotism. It was a taunt. A reminder that in Trump's eyes, Canada is a junior partner that should know its place. But here's the truth Ford threw back in his face. America needs Canada far more than Trump admits. Every morning, 9 million Americans go to work making products, services, and vehicles tied directly to the Canadian economy. Close to 20 million U.S. jobs depend on Ontario alone. And Canada? It buys more from the United States than China, Japan, Korea, the UK, and France combined. That's not dependency. That's power. And for once, a Canadian leader reminded Washington of it.
Before moving forward, hit subscribe button, because this story is only getting started.
Ford's rally wasn't just about cheering a crowd, it was a direct message to Carney. When you sit in that Oval Office, remember who you represent. Because this time, Carney won't just be negotiating over numbers on a spreadsheet. He'll be walking into that room carrying the pride and frustration of a nation that's tired of being talked down to. For Trump, this meeting was supposed to be routine. For Carney, it's turned into a showdown over the soul of Canada. And here's where things get interesting. Ford's speech may have just rewritten the script. Because up until that rally, Carney already had quiet support. Polls showed nearly 80% of Canadians rejected Trump's 51st state rhetoric. But now, with Ford, one of the most recognizable conservative figures in the country, backing him up publicly, Carney is walking into Washington with something rare in Canadian politics, a united front. This isn't left versus right anymore. It's Canada versus humiliation. And when a Liberal Prime Minister and a Conservative Premier start sounding like they're on the same page, you know the country's hit a boiling point. Trump's jabs may sound like showmanship, but they cut deep. He knows exactly what he's doing. He wants to rattle Carney before the talks begin, make him defensive, push him into a weaker negotiating position. But the result has been the opposite. Instead of dividing Canadians, Trump's remarks have ignited them. And Ford's timing couldn't be more perfect. By taking the national stage days before Carney's trip, he turned what could have been a quiet diplomatic visit into a full-blown political showdown, the kind that captures headlines, rallies voters, and draws a line across the 49th parallel. It's not just a meeting anymore. It's a moment of identity. For decades, Canada has been careful, diplomatic, measured, always trying to keep the relationship smooth. But that old playbook is cracking. Because under Carney, the country's been quietly shifting course. Canada is no longer content to play the polite neighbor who bends when Washington leans. Instead, it's diversifying, building new trade channels with Europe and Asia, investing in its own defense, and flexing its sovereignty in the Arctic. That change hasn't gone unnoticed in the White House. For Trump, a man who defines relationships through control, it's infuriating. His 51st state line isn't strategy. It's emotion. It's frustration. Because the more independent Canada becomes, the less control he has. And that's exactly what Ford called out, not with policy but with passion. He didn't cite numbers like a bureaucrat. He spoke like a fighter. Like someone who understands that pride matters just as much as policy. So now, the world's watching. As Carney prepares to step into the most high-stakes meeting of his career, he carries more than talking points. He carries the weight of 40 million Canadians who expect him to walk into that Oval Office not as a diplomat trying to appease, but as a Prime Minister defending the dignity of a nation. Because Trump may hold the world's biggest economy, but Canada holds something else. Something that can't be bought, bullied, or bent. Pride. And this week, pride is walking into Washington.
A message to the Prime Minister. You're going down there Tuesday. You better fight like hell. Don't roll over and keep fighting. You know, you're President Trump. You hear President Trump, we don't need Canada. I'll tell you, they need Canada. Every morning, 9 million Americans wake up to produce products, be it vehicles or widgets or services for Ontario alone. Close to 20 million American jobs rely on their largest trading partner in the entire world. We buy more products off the U.S. than China, Japan, Korea, the U.K., and France. That's what Canada's all about. We have the best people anywhere in the entire world. We're going to keep fighting. You hear President Trump, again, he's off his kilter. He's 51st state. A message to President Trump, we will never, ever be the 51st state. We're going to keep fighting like we've never fought before.
Morning breaks cold and sharp over Ottawa. But in the Prime Minister's office, the air is anything but cold. It's charged, like the seconds before thunder. Mark Carney is about to step into the meeting that could define not only his leadership, but the shape of Canada's future. Across the border, Trump has already been stirring the pot. At a rally in Ohio the night before, he'd done it again, tossed out his favorite taunt, smiling as the crowd roared. Maybe it's time Canada just joined the family, the 51st state. Laughter, cheers, the usual swagger. But beneath it all, everyone knew those weren't jokes. They were jabs, sharpened for headlines and leverage. Now, as Carney's plane slices through the gray skies toward Washington, he's not flying solo. He carries the pressure of millions. Every newsroom in the country is running live countdowns. Every political strategist is calculating what happens if he pushes back too hard, or not hard enough. Inside the cabin, aides murmur over briefing papers. The issues are stacked like dominoes: tariffs on autos, U.S. steel restrictions, cross-border energy disputes. But underneath all of it is one unspoken question: will Carney confront Trump about the 51st state remark? He doesn't need notes to know what's at stake. Doug Ford's words still echo through the headlines: fight like hell. Don't roll over. For once, even his critics are saying the same thing: Carney has to show strength, not diplomacy. By the time the convoy rolls up to the White House gates, the world is watching. The media pen is a wall of cameras and microphones, and on social media, hashtags like #StandTallCanada and #51STStateNoMore are trending across the country. When Carney steps out of the car, he doesn't wave. He doesn't smile. He simply walks, steady, focused, toward the front doors of the White House. Because everyone knows this isn't a photo op. It's a fight for narrative. Inside the Oval Office, the atmosphere is deceptively calm. Trump sits behind the resolute desk, papers scattered, a half-finished Diet Coke by his hand. The moment Carney enters, Trump grins, the kind of grin that says I'm in control here. Mark, he booms. Good to see you again. You ready to make Canada great again? Aides laugh. Cameras flash. But Carney doesn't flinch. He shakes Trump's hand, firm and unblinking. The small talk is brief. Then, the doors close. Now it's just them, two men, two nations, one room. What follows isn't televised, but what leaks out afterward tells the story. Trump opens with trade numbers, complaints about Canadian energy exports, gripes about defense spending. It's the same script until he pivots, almost casually. You know, a lot of Americans think Canada's basically part of us anyway. We defend you, we feed you, maybe we should just make it official. Carney doesn't look away. He's heard the line before, but this time, he's ready. Mr. President, he says evenly, Canada has been your closest ally for over a century. We're not a branch office of the United States. We're your partner, and your biggest customer. Remember that. For a moment, silence. Then Trump leans back, smirks. You're a tough one, huh? Carney replies, tough is what you taught us to be. The tension in the room is almost physical, two wills colliding, two political worlds clashing. And while the details stay classified, insiders later describe the tone as cold, sharp, and decisive. Carney isn't there to provoke. He's there to end the mockery. He slides a folder across the desk, a breakdown showing how many U.S. jobs depend on Canadian trade. Page after page of numbers, cities, industries. Detroit, Ohio, Texas, Michigan, he says. You'd lose millions of jobs before Canada lost one. This isn't about dependence. It's about partnership. We buy more from you than your next 5 trading partners combined. Trump flips through the pages, expression unreadable. Then he says quietly, I like people who buy American. Carney doesn't miss a beat, and we do. That's what makes us valuable, not vulnerable. Meanwhile, back in Canada, Ford is milking the moment. He's on every network, doubling down on his rally speech. Trump thinks he can push us around. Not on my watch. Not on Carney's either, he tells reporters. Even his critics admit it, Ford's message has struck a chord. For once, the political divide has blurred. From Vancouver to St. John's, Canadians are united by a single, raw sentiment, don't let Trump bully us. Online, patriotic videos flood YouTube and TikTok, montages of Canadian workers, soldiers, families, all captioned with Ford's now famous line, we will never, ever be America's 51st state. Carney's image, walking into the White House, jaw set, goes viral within hours. The narrative has flipped. Trump wanted to remind Canada of its place. Instead, he's reminded Canadians of their pride. Inside the White House, the meeting stretches for over 2 hours. They talk tariffs, energy, NATO. But every topic circles back to the same point, sovereignty. Trump pushes. Carney resists. At one point, sources say Trump snaps, you're making this personal. Carney answers, it is personal, for 40 million Canadians. When the doors finally open, the photo op looks civil enough, 2 leaders shaking hands, smiling for the press. But behind those smiles, the world sees something different. Trump's grin is tight. Carney's eyes are steel. Everyone watching knows, this wasn't diplomacy. It was a duel. And for the first time in a long time, it looks like Canada didn't blink. As Carney leaves the White House and the cameras erupt, one question hangs in the air. Did he just redefine Canada's place on the global stage, or spark a storm that's only beginning? Because one thing's clear, Trump isn't done talking. And neither is Canada. The meeting is over. But the real battle has just begun. Hours after Carney's plane lifts off from Washington, Trump takes to his favorite platform and fires off a message that lights up both sides of the border. Canada should be grateful for the protection and trade we give them. Maybe one day they'll realize who the real boss is. The tweet explodes. But this time, Canada doesn't flinch. From Parliament Hill to downtown Toronto, people are already replying in unison. Hashtag not for sale. Hashtag 51st state never. Hashtag stand tall Canada. Back in Ottawa, Carney lands to a scene no one expected. Crowds are waiting, flags waving, phones in the air. Reporters shouting questions. But the Prime Minister doesn't give speeches, he gives a message. Canada is strong. Canada is sovereign. And Canada bows to no one. Simple. Clear. Unmistakable. Within minutes, Doug Ford echoes it from Queen's Park. That's how you fight like hell. And across the nation, something rare happens, the country feels united. Left, right, east, west, doesn't matter. Canadians stand shoulder to shoulder behind one simple truth: we are not anyone's 51st state. Trump's taunt was meant to humiliate. Instead, it ignited pride. It woke up a country that's been quiet for too long. Because when you push Canadians too far, when you mock their independence, their contribution, their history, you don't get submission. You get resolve. And now, the world knows it. So the next time anyone doubts where Canada stands, they'll remember this week. When Ford roared, when Carney stood tall. And when 40 million voices answered back with one word. Never. So what do you think? Did Mark Carney just redefine Canada's stance against Trump's pressure? Or are we heading for an even bigger political storm ahead? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is far from over. And if you believe Canada should always stand tall, stay proud, and never back down, hit that subscribe button and join us here at Canada Today for the stories that shape our nation's future. Bold voices. Real politics. Canadian pride. Canadian. Until next time, stay sharp, stay informed, and never stop fighting for the truth.
Canada Debates.